It's 3:47, not 3:57.
We don't need to go on 10 minutes early.
Oh, it's 3:47?
Yep, it's
I
3:47.
thought you said 3 minutes.
I did. And Jerry, your sound's gone.
We're going on anyways. We're going on early.
That's all right. Let's do it. Jerry, your sound's gone.
Test. Test. Can you hear me? Oh my God. How about now?
Hello, everyone. This is Scott Roberts with Explore Scientific, and you're once again here with us on the OpenGOTO Community Live. It's Wednesday, July 15th, episode 28, I believe, something like that, or 29. And we're here a little bit early. We're about 10 minutes early, but we're on a new platform. We tested a little bit earlier today. Today we're on Zoom. We've been using Skype to broadcast with, and so this is a little bit different platform for us. So forgive us for any kind of glitches that might happen. Anyhow.
My microphone has been acting up. Can you hear me?
Yeah, if you just speak up a little bit more, Jerry.
I don't know what the heck. How about now?
Okay, now it's see your volume's kind of slowly increasing. So maybe if you just constantly talk.
Yeah, it's good enough now. How about now?
It's good now.
Okay.
It's good now.
I don't know. Maybe I've got some adjustments set up where it modifies itself for the background.
Right.
I don't know. I don't know what it is.
Right. Well, today we've got some subjects we want to cover. One of them is about tuning the Xs2 Mount. And then we're going to talk a little bit about unguided tracking performance of these mounts, because a lot of you are doing astrophotography or want to do astrophotography. And then we're going to demonstrate changing channels on the Wi-Fi connection, because sometimes what happens is you get to an area where there's a lot of Wi-Fi and that's on the same channel. And so we have a dongle that you can plug into the unit. You can cycle it, and it will choose a different Wi-Fi channel, and that may be a lot less traffic than what you're experiencing. So, and of course, we have our question of the day, and we have prizes to hand out to a lucky winner. So. Anyhow, let's get started with the Exos2 tuning that Bob Hoskins does.
Yeah. So can you hear me again still?
Yeah, it's no problem.
Okay, good. I guess how many people are on with us, or do we have any people at all? Do you want to wait
Oh,
5 minutes?
Yeah, there's some.
Oh, they've been waiting for a while. That's good. They get on early. They want to get on.
They want to get on early.
Get in
You know,
line.
some
They
guys
get in
want us to go on later. They want us to go on about 5 p.m. Central. You
Oh,
know,
I see.
some people are working and they need to, but it kind of runs into a problem if we have another show after this one. So, but if more and more of you want us to change the time later or earlier, just let us know and we'll rework the schedule. So, but
Have you enabled sharing desktop protection or the security for me to share my desktop? Share my screen
hey, how do I do that?
under the little security shield on Zoom.
Okay. Share screen is enabled. Yeah.
Okay. All right, I just did mine.
There you go.
See it? Cool.
And it looks nice.
All right, so this is Bob
Really good.
Hoskins. Yeah, good. I guess you see my little panel there on the top too with our pictures. Is that right?
Yes.
Perhaps I'm watching the restream right now. So
Okay.
let's see.
I'm
Yeah,
just
and
gonna,
it comes out just fine. And it's got your
okay.
picture up in the corner.
Okay, I'm just gonna leave that there. So I'm just gonna go over, we're gonna skim through this document. It's a pretty good document. It's got a lot of great information. It's 18 pages long, but we'll go over the highlights of this document. And first I want to show you where you can get it. And I'm going to increase the size of this text here. All right, so here's the forum under the mounts subgroup. Bob posted this in the files section. And can you see it right there? Under
Yes.
the files, it's this tuning notes file right here, version 1. Bob Hoskin posted this. So that's where you can find it. And so let me go back. Are there any questions about that?
It's in the mount section because this is associated with doing something with your mount. That's why it's in the mount
right.
section.
That's right. Oops. I got the wrong tab. Y'all wonder how I can keep track of the tabs up here, probably.
You can't?
Yeah, well, there's cheats because you can hover over it and it'll tell you what it is. See up the top there?
Yep.
So I can see what it is. All right, so let's get into this document. Bob's put together an introduction to the document, why we're doing this. And the purpose of this document, like he says here, is about improving the mechanical performance of the mount for the purpose of auto guiding.
Now, Jerry, I want to go back. Read that second paragraph under number 1, because I think that's critical.
Okay. If you decide to use this information in these notes on your mount, I suggest that you read the notes through a couple of times before picking up a screwdriver. So that's a typical, any procedure that you're going to perform or any kind of instructions, you want to read through them and understand them and get answers to any questions you might have about what the procedure says. But a lot of people are somewhat averse to reading things anyway, and they just throw caution to the wind and want to just go into it and start doing stuff with the procedure.
That would be me, you know.
Yeah. So, that's how you discover things
That's right.
and you learn stuff. When you have a question, you get into it and you say, well, all right, how do I do this now? And I got a question about the procedure. So it depends on your I guess it just depends on your individual what your type, what you think about procedures and what you bring to the table on this stuff. So yeah, but it is good practice to always read and understand the procedure before you start to use it. Make sure you have the tools also. That's the other thing about these procedures. You may have a tool or need a tool that's in a procedure that you may not have, and it's always good to discover that before you start down that path.
The other thing I always recommend is videotape yourself taking it apart, because you can always take pictures of what you're doing and refer back to it in reverse order. Even though Bob's done a great job of documenting it here, it's always good to document specifically what you do and take notes. Write it down.
Yeah, any settings, any configuration settings you want to write down, any measurements that you do, you want to write them down.
Maybe take pictures too, if you can.
Yeah, take pictures. And you know, I used to write procedures for a nuclear plant, so you can really get anal about procedures if you really want to. Although Bob's done an excellent job here, he's I think he's struck the right balance between detail and instruction, and not gotten too much to make it too tedious, I should say. So he's got some notes here about what we're trying to achieve. Again, it's about improving the mechanical performance for auto guiding, and he's going to suggest some changes. But the difference, there's a difference with these things with his advice. So I would. He's got a lot of experience with this mount, so he gives you good advice in this procedure. And the other thing, this is a good thing here, a good comment. The mount won't run itself. And we go back to it every so often. It's not a toaster. It requires some effort and understanding to get the best out of any piece of equipment, and that's the way it is with this mount.
That's true. And this is true of any mount.
Of any mount, that's right. And it's actually truer of more expensive mounts than it is for cheaper mounts.
Mhm.
There's a lot more things you can do with a more expensive mount in terms of adjustments and tuning and understanding all the pieces parts, because you bought a more sophisticated, it could be a more sophisticated system where you really have to understand a lot more to get the best out of it.
Right. Yeah, I can imagine what they do when they set up a professional observatory,
Oh yeah,
all the tweaks and everything that they do to get that thing really dialed in.
right, exactly. All right. So the next section, he talks about balancing the scope. And balance is important because that basically establishes the limit of what the PMC-8 system can do. So if you're way out of balance, it won't work at all because you're overloading the motor, basically. You do have some tolerance there for the balance, and also a little bit of bias in the balance helps you to increase performance also, which we talked about yesterday, and he
Right.
talked about that here, right here, when it's east heavy. So preloads, I guess, is a topic or a concept that people need to understand in terms of the gear system, because we don't have $5,000 gear sets here that are perfectly meshed and perfectly adjusted. You have to make some adjustments and change your change the technique that you set up and tune your mount with. So that's what that is. The other thing is this note here: if your mount does not swing freely with locks released, then you can't balance it. That's an important thing to understand. And can you talk to more about that? We've had problems with clutches that don't release all the way and
Yeah,
stuff
and
like
there's
that.
as Bob says, it takes enough work that we don't recommend it. It's a case of you need to send it in, unless Bob is good and mechanical and he says don't do it. I advise people don't do it. Just call us and let us deal with it.
But one thing I will say about this is that we run every mount before we ship it. So we do hook it up. We do put it through all of its paces, but things unfortunately can happen in shipping.
Right. And we'll take care of it.
Yeah.
Right. So,
but it can be frustrating when it won't move, and just contact us.
Very.
Very.
And that's
oh yeah, that's a pain. So he basically suggests what we suggested yesterday. He wants east heavy, balance east heavy on the counterweight, and also camera heavy on the deck axis. You know, we're not driving the deck axis continuously, so it's not quite as important. But when you go to slew to an object, it's always good to have a bias against the gear.
Yep.
And when it's vertical, the only time you'll have a problem in a deck is when the axis is vertical in terms of the camera weight. So it acts like a pendulum and can you know, go back and forth like that a little bit when it's swinging at vertical on the deck axis. Okay, then he talks about the tripod. I know, I think it's Bob that had some work on the tripod or figured out some things with the tripod. Yeah, so he's got some suggestions here. He noticed that there was some shifting going on. He said, because my tripod was shifting as the weight of scope shifted, it wasn't from the tripod feed, it was something else that he had to figure out. His polar alignment was going bad because there was something going on with his tripod and he couldn't figure it out. So it's flexure. It's a form of flexure. And what he found out, oh, here's the thing about the spacer. So when you put together the tripod, the Xs2 tripod, there's a bunch of parts. The spacer is an important thing. That's what he talks about here, this little chrome ring spacer.
We call it a shoulder washer or a cup washer.
Yeah, so maybe you want to talk about that a little bit.
There was one on my desk that's gone.
It's like he says, the little short chrome
here.
ring.
You're talking about the cup washer itself?
Yep, I've got one. Hang on, I'll get one.
Yeah, another thing I want to point out here is that we've sold tons and tons of the mounts that we have. Very few people actually do this level of tuning. And lots of people have made their first astrophotographs with the mounts right out of the box. And so that's, but this is for all of you guys that want to, you really just kind of tweak it to make it even better. So it's like you've bought a car, but you want to tune this thing because you're going to go racing, right? Or do some performance driving. And that's what this is all about.
That's right. That's correct. So he talks about that chrome ring. Kent will be back and show you exactly what it looks like. It's important to get that in there because that allows you to tighten the tripod head against the mount itself against the tripod head very tightly, and secures that. So he's talking about the setting up the tripod here correctly, and most people can, like you said, do that. You did see a little bit of thing with the this is a very close-up picture of the spreader bar.
Oh, you put a pad in there.
He put a pad in there to help it grip, which is a good anti-flexure device, I guess you could say, because otherwise it'd be metal on metal and it could slip a little bit depending on how tight those components, when the tripod is spread out, the spreader bar pushes against it and it's in compression.
Yeah.
And it could it could slip a little bit. I guess the slide, the
You know what I do, Jerry, is I pick up the whole tripod off the ground and holding by the spreader bar, and then I tighten it.
Oh,
Okay.
right. So that the
That-
feet don't
does the same
stop
thing,
it from
but
moving. Yeah.
the little pads are nice because it keeps you from dinging the inside of your tripod leg.
So one thing we
You got
discovered
that space from that unevenness with the pads itself, it looks like.
one thing we discovered is because of some people sending their tripods to be replaced in testing, there's mechanical differences in those hinges, and there's no perfect tripod. So our advice has become you just have to keep tightening it until you get things wedged together. And it can be pretty tight to get it pushed up there. That's,
I just mentioned, Kent, that a technique that I do is I pick up the whole tripod off the ground, pulling up on the spreader bar. Okay. Then I tighten it, but I'll jiggle it a little bit.
Right. Same thing I do.
You get like little binding parts there. So if you just put the tripod legs on the ground and start to tighten the spreader bar, it'll feel like it's tight. Okay. When in fact,
it'll move. It'll open up. It'll open up. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. Yes.
You're adding a lot of tension as you're pushing those legs out with the spreader bar.
Right. You tightened against the ground, basically, is what you've done when you leave it on the ground.
Exactly. And you don't really want to do that. You'd like, and it's not so heavy that you can't do this, picking it up by the spreader bar.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
so
so
you got a spreader bar there with a.
Yep. Here's a spreader bar with, and here's that little cup washer we're talking about right here. If you look,
there you go.
One side, let me find the camera here. One side has an indentation, a shoulder, and the other side is just flat. See the difference?
Yes.
Yeah.
So the indentation goes down onto the spreader bar. Now then, the directions that come with these also show two washers. Those two washers at some point were changed, but the directions never changed. So maybe in the next production run, we can get that fixed. But this little washer goes on. If you put it on upside down with the cup up, it will not go on there. The cup has to be down, just like that.
Okay, great. So one of the key parts of getting your astrophotography as good as it can be is to minimize flexure in the tripod, and that's the first part. That's the first piece. When you tighten up the mount and the tripod, get that correct, and then that'll go a long way towards getting rid of that flexure. And these pads that's a good idea. That's a good technique to help that.
Right.
All right, so that's the tripod. The next section, he says, be cautious about the hex cap screws used as fasteners in the mounts. Okay. So he doesn't have any pictures of that. He says most are M5 fasteners.
This would be a cap screw, right? Is that what he's talking about?
I guess. I'm trying to think. He says M5 cap metric screws.
M5.
I think he's talking about the little ones with that take an Allen wrench. Isn't that what he's talking about? But I don't know which ones he's talking about on the Exos 2. Maybe he is talking about the ones that are on the like on the hinges.
Those are pretty good size. Those are bigger than M5.
Those are like bolt. Yeah, those are he's talking about he's talking about hex wrenches.
Yes,
so
he is. Allen keys.
Allen keys, right? I don't know if he's just talking in general. He wants to make sure you don't mess them up, I guess. Don't round out.
And he also don't mix them up.
Right, don't mix them up.
Right.
Do you know where on the Exos 2 that he's talking about these cap screws are at? These hex Allen wrench?
Nope.
I'm not sure what he's talking about.
Yeah, we'll talk to him. We'll have him on the
some
program.
Just about the hex cap screws used as fasteners on the mount.
I know we have them on the Exos 100 mount.
We'll need to have him put pictures I'm sure he's got some pictures he can stick in
Yeah, yeah.
to clarify.
All right, so now we can move to the mouse drivetrain. And this is where people, like he says, generally people focus on the mesh between the worm and the ring gear. That's important, but it's only half the story. There is a lot involved with the drivetrain. We got not just the worm and the wheel. I call it a wheel. Some people call it a ring gear.
Mm-hmm.
You'll hear that or you see that when you're reading about it. The other thing we have is a pulley system, which is really a big part of the gear system in terms of performance also, which is what he talks, he's referring to that also. So he goes through and he disassembles it and shows it, and he talks about adjusting the worm gear. I don't know how much we want to get into this directly. I just wanted to do an overview of the document.
Right.
But he talks about how to take all that apart. And then he has, first thing he goes over is the tools that you need. So this is part of reading the procedure ahead of time to understand what you might want to have available. A screwdriver, X wrenches, duct tape. I guess he uses that to fasten things. Some shims. I guess he uses some shims in here to do fine adjustment on the alignment of the motor probably. Some grease if you're gonna re-grease the gear system. So he does some bearing adjustments here also with this pin spanner, a lens wrench.
Required for any bearing adjustments. Mm-hmm.
And then he has some Loctite also if you want to lock things down.
I think critical. Go back to the Loctite. Blue, 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 not red.
Yeah, not red,
any other
right.
color. Blue.
What does that say? That one more time?
I think it means blue.
Blue. That's
blue
right.
Loctite.
Yeah. If any of you guys have worked with Loctite, you know that there's different kinds. And, so if you just have a little bit of red left over, don't be tempted to use it,
You'll never get it out. You'll strip
you
the
never get it out. So
that stuff works good. It does exactly what it says it does, probably on the tube.
Yes.
The red most assuredly locks it tight.
Right. That's right.
All right, so I'm gonna just
he really goes through it. So let me
yeah,
ask you,
he's got some really detailed stuff.
does Bob Hoskins do this as a service as well? Can you send your mount to him? And
I haven't heard about that. I
haven't heard about that. Okay.
He hasn't. I know he does it as a service in terms of talking with people when they have questions, and he guides them through it.
This is really extensive. This is like buying a new car and then tearing the engine and transmission apart to get
it literally is
really dialed in for,
So he's worked out some techniques that are kind of cool. For example, he uses a piece of Gorilla duct tape across the joint. For immobilizing the axis, and he also has these little tape hinges that he makes for the cover. And so he just starts to go into taking things apart, removing the cover, and you can see he's got it hinged.
Oh, I see.
Tape.
Yeah.
So it just folds open.
Down.
You don't pull the wire. The main thing is you don't want to pull this wire or get it hanging. That's protecting that strain relief for that wire. You can see the pulley systems. Looks very nice. And then he talks. Oh, there's the hex wrenches he's talking about. That's what he's talking about.
I see.
The adjustment on the motor. Is that on the motor? That's on the worm block? I think.
No, it's what actually is. It goes through the mount and locks the motor assembly onto the worm.
Okay. It's been a while since I took one of these apart. I couldn't remember. So just as an overview of the adjustment, let me see if he gets into this. So he takes the belt off, and then
so hang on. When you loosen that bolt is how you adjust the tension on the belt. So you loosen that bolt and you can pull it with your hand or push it forward. And if you push it forward, scroll up just a little bit, Jerry, right there. So you can push it forward and that releases tension on the belt and the belt then comes off. And so later on, that's how you adjust your belt tensions by loosening those two master bolt on each of the RA and deck motors.
Okay. And then he talks, and then the worm block has 3 screws. It's a push-pull type of system where you're pushing one screw against the other 2, and and that's how you loosen one and you tighten the other, and that's how you adjust it. Is that right?
Basically, he gets into it. He goes
yeah.
into it.
So he takes all that stuff apart. And so he gets into this. Check the adjustment screw.
We have a comment here from Chalk Star. He says, "Can you do this to mine before it ships?"
Yeah. So
this is a multi-hour, maybe multi-day type of project here. This is for those of you who want to tear it completely down, rebuild it, dial every part of it back in. Okay.
So Chalks lives in the UK, and he had an Exos 100. He was trying to get going and finally just upgraded. I think today ordered probably from First Light Optics in the UK an Exos 2 with PMC-Eight. So good to have you aboard, Chalks. Hi.
Yeah.
Now I would caution people to not immediately tear into their mount when they get it. They should test it out and see how it performs under the sky for them. Many beginners, I don't mean this in a bad way, but they'll think that they can make improvements without having any experience with their mount according to these procedures, and they very well could, but they need to be able to understand when their skills are strong enough to push the limits of the mount before they try to even do something like this. And that would be my advice.
Right. Yeah. So there's kind of like, when you go and build model airplanes, or I used to do scale model building, there are kits and they would have like this experience level on the kit, for beginners, moderately knowledgeable to advanced to very advanced, or they'd have a star system on it or something about how crazy advanced it was. These kinds of adjustments are for someone who really wants to tinker and to try to squeeze out the last ounce of performance out of their mount.
Right.
It is something that in a category of mounts itself for under $5,000. Okay, this is something where you could go and tweak any brand of mount. But I'll tell you again, since being in the business since 1980, I don't even have one. Well, I'm not going to say one friend, okay, but very few that have gone completely to where they tore down a mount, rebuilt it to get this kind of level of precision. One day I hope to be friends with Bob Hoskins, and then I can add into my list of 5 friends who've done this. Okay, so this is not something that is you're going, oh my God, I bought whatever, a Celestron mount, a Meade mount, our mounts, Ioptron's another company, that you think that you have to go and tear your mount down to get it to work. Okay, that's not the case at all. Okay.
No, it's not.
And you're going to find out that, if you look at the thousands of astrophotographs that are done every year, most of those mounts are right out of the box. So
that's right.
And what I find is people worry about little things. The belt's moving just a little bit. I watch it and it walks back and forth.
Yeah.
Use a guide scope. You're letting tiny little things get in the way of enjoying your mount and learning your craft and getting data. And they want immediate perfection. That comes with skill and experience.
Well, you don't know what perfection looks like.
Go ahead, Jerry.
Perfection. So in engineering terms, you want to balance all the sources of error. All right. So let's say you've got it does no good to tune your mount to where it's perfect if you don't have the skill to guide your mount correctly. You know,
Right.
you're gonna spend all your time making your mount as perfect as you can and still see mediocre or fairly good images, but not what you want. And it's not your mount. There's other
It's
things
seen.
involved. And I created that document.
We need to share that. We need to go over that.
21 different things that get in the way of creating a
I
perfect
think I think it's more
astrophotograph.
like 28 or something like that.
Yeah, right.
We need to do a show on that because that's awesome.
Yeah,
But
there's a ton of stuff involved.
you know, when people start worrying about getting into sub arc minute and improving their tracking by a tenth of an arc second, you know, yet their scene only allows 3 or 5 arc seconds.
Yeah, right.
It it doesn't it doesn't help anything because the scene's not gonna until you get good scene. Driving those little fractional errors out don't help. You know,
No. And
so people worry about it. Just go out
right,
and use
people
your
worry
equipment.
about it. It's pixel peeping. It's another form of pixel peeping.
Yeah.
So Jeff Wise says it's called hypertuning. Actually, Jeff, we call this tuning your mount. Hypertuning involves, in our view, taking 6,000 grit jeweler's rouge and polishing bearing surfaces to mirror-like quality, and polishing every gear tooth in the gear train, and really that's hypertuning. And take them out and go use it,
Yeah.
and look for the big things you can do to improve.
But for a lot of people, this is fun. This is
Yeah.
this is
It's part of the hobby. This is like
tinkering and
ATM.
tweaking of your equipment. And what's great about Bob's document is he tells you exactly how he did it and what he did to make real fine adjustments. So I would imagine that if he offered this service, he would probably be charging something like $500 or $600 to provide all the level of detail that he's done here. You know, so I have seen there have been people that have created a business out of hyper tuning mounts and that kind of thing. It's really cool when you can get it done. And if you're able to do this kind of stuff yourself, then that's even better. But anyhow, that's the deal on that. And you know, we should try to get Bob on the show sometime so that we can get him to talk more about this if our group is interested. So
Yeah, so I just kind of went through. I went past. He checks the worm block. He talks about these adjustment screws and what's a good upgrade would be to replace this middle screw with one without a cap on it, just a standard threaded fixture with the Allen insert. He talks about adjusting the retainer nut on the worm block, and that's that section. He also, the next section is installing the worm block. So he gets into that, how to shim it to make the alignment more perfect, I should say, you know, and then how to tighten it up, you know, how to go back and forth to tighten it up, which is kind of cool. He's got very extensive notes on this. It'd be cool if he could create a video also. Maybe we'll work with him.
where he says done.
Number 10, done.
Oh, number 10, done. Yeah.
Done.
Right.
He didn't put a period because it's not a sentence, it's just a statement.
Yeah, it's a statement. Right, done. And then so it's important to understand the order of what he's doing here.
Yeah.
And this is the way it is with the G11. You always want to put your gearing, your ring and your worm block and your ring gear, put that together first before you attach a motor to it. You want that as good as you can get it before you actually attach the motor. So that's why he's done it in this order. And then the purpose of putting the motor on and adjusting the motor is to make sure it's square to the worm gear, and basically perfectly parallel to it.
Yeah, perpendicular or parallel, however you want to look at it.
Parallel, right? And so that's this section. He talks about how to position the pulleys with the little, I don't know if he shows adjustment of that. So if you do need to reposition the pulleys, pull back on the motor housing enough to put light tension on the belt, and then you can align it and then secure the retaining board. Now you can adjust the pulleys. So he's talking about these little set screws that are in the pulleys.
Yeah.
And basically that allows you to move them along the shaft to make sure
right.
they're aligned. They're
Yeah,
aligned
like
with each other.
exactly, perfectly aligned.
And here's a critical component. I've had a couple of people who have dealt with that. The shaft that comes out of the worm has a shoulder on it. And they didn't get the shoulder aligned with the set screw. And so they put the set screw into the round part of the shaft. And at some point it finally turns and then it just spins because it's not pressing down on the shoulder part. And so we actually had a mount come back in because we couldn't figure it out. And once that happened, it's like, oh, okay. And so then from now on, it's just, it was just like find the shoulder and tighten it down. And once we got that, you tighten on the shoulder and it works. That's a critical component of that.
Right.
Right.
So we have some comments here, some questions. This is on Facebook. Let's see. Gary Palmer is saying in different countries, is this going to invalidate any warranty? I can't speak for other countries, but I can tell you that in the United States, the answer is no. If you go in and you want to make adjustments and something goes wrong, you mess it up somehow, then you can bring it back into us and we'll take care of it. So that's not a problem.
We like our customers to understand how their systems work and be able to do maintenance on it. Now this is a full teardown, but you can learn about how the system works and how to do adjustments for basic maintenance over time.
For instance, if you look at your belt and you can push down your belt and it goes and it's real loose, right here, section 5 that we're on right now shows you how to loosen that bolt, pull back on that motor, and get the belt tension, tighten it down, and test it. And that's exactly what Alex Sanchez does. Is he loosens it, pulls it back, and when it presses just a little bit.
By the way, Alex works for us in QA. So
yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah,
and he's the guy that checks every one of these mounts.
Right.
Mike Overacker is asking, which is the higher end mount, the Exos 2 or the Exos 100? The Exos 2 handles a larger payload. The Exos 100 is our, one of our newest mounts. So
I would like to say they're both on equal in terms of the higher end because the performance is very similar, even though it's less expensive for the Exos 100. But you're paying for payload and for other things.
Sure.
Mike also asked, any idea when the Exos 2 goes on sale again?
Probably never. The costs are starting to rise from materials, labor,
transportation,
everything's going up. And, I'll never say never, but it's when you look at it from a cost standpoint versus when we placed orders and that kind of thing, and they delivered the product, we get them in bulks of hundreds of these mounts at a time, and then we sell them through. But in the meantime, the cost of everything keeps going up. We also had a run-in with tariffs at one point, and so hopefully that's all put to bed and not going to be affecting us anymore. But I would say that if you're interested in an Exos 2, at this moment, you're going to have to look at a dealer to buy one because we're sold out, I believe. So
I think we have a couple left.
Couple left.
We might as well be sold out, but I'll just look real quick.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say that if we've got dealers that have placed orders for them already, that we are. Um, Kevin Ray says, "Hi guys," from Kevin Ray, Lancaster, California, owner of two Exos 2 GT PMC-8s with Celestron C8 mounted on top, and also a Skywatcher Star Travel 120 when I use a refractor. Thanks, Kevin. That's great. He says, "How about modifying the guiding port so we can plug in a Celestron hand controller instead?" It's not just that simple.
No, it's not.
No, it's not.
It's like Chinese and French. They're not related in any way.
Mm-hmm. Steve Mollias, he's watching right now. He says he's buying all the mounts. So there you go.
Oh, so Steve's
you better hurry.
cornered the market.
Well,
Right.
there's still a few showing up in inventory, so you better hurry, Steve.
That's right. Abigail Bolenbach joined us here recently. We want to thank everybody that's watching on Facebook. We've got viewers on YouTube. Jeff Wise is there. There's some questions here as well and some comments that I'll read off. Dave Connolly, Mr. Thump 30. Wolfgang from Germany has joined us. Bob from South Carolina. Trepiccioni, I keep trying to pronounce his name. I don't know if I'm getting it right or not. James the astrophotographer is watching as well, as he usually does. James the astrophotographer says, "I crank it down, readjust, and crank down again, plus vibration pads help." That's true. Vibration pads are great. Mr. Thump 30 says, "I'm still green. When you say east heavy, you mean have it set so the weight favors pulling the scope down, the scope east to west?
Yeah, east heavy means, yes.
Go ahead.
Yeah, you're basically biasing the counterweight so that now maybe I'm looking at this different than you, Kent, but I'm thinking that when the counterweight is on the east side of the pier, it's pulling down on that side.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I think.
Okay.
James, the astrophotographer, comments. He says, "This hobby is not instant gratification, but with knowledge and experience and determination, the rewards follow." That's true. That's true.
Right. Maybe I should plug my book a little bit because I get into that at the beginning of my first book, which is called Scientific Astrophotography by Springer Books. And yeah, I give you my personal story going through this
Jerry,
years ago.
Scott, you want to put that up real quick?
Jerry has to stop sharing his screen.
Oh, okay. Well, let me talk. I'm talking, and maybe that makes it pop up because no, there it is.
But it's a little view of it, but you can see it.
Yeah. So maybe I'll bring up a picture of it, but if you search on Amazon, you'll find, if you search my name, Gerald Hubbell, or if you search for scientific astrophotography, you'll find it. And in fact, let me just do that real quick.
So while you're doing that, Jeff Weiss asked, "Do the stats you get from PhD2 tell you how well you are tracking and if you need to tune your mount further?" What those guide logs will show you is where the periodic errors are. And through knowledge of how the system works, knowing that period of the error gives some significant clues on what's causing it. And so those guide logs point you in the right direction on what you need to be looking at. And, don't worry about the tiny little ones. You worry about the big ones first and figure out what's causing them.
Right. And we went through that. We went through an analysis of the PhD guide log about a week ago, 2 weeks ago, maybe, one of our episodes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So here's my book. I just want to mention it because I get into every thing. And my early experience with getting into astrophotography with the new technology, I was into it back in the 80s with standard film stuff. I did a little tiny bit of it, but I didn't get into it until like 12 years ago. And I went through a learning process. And the biggest thing the hobby taught me is that two things. It's a journey. It's not a goal. It is a goal, but it's a journey going to different goals. And it's also builds your patience. If anything's going to build patience in you, it's going to be astrophotography because of the weather, because of all the other things that are involved with getting this stuff to work.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But one of the things I'll say is that, some people were talking to me and they were rank beginners. I mean, real beginners that were just stepping in and looking at their first telescopes and everything. And they were asking me how long I've been involved and stuff. And I told them just the elevator speech about how long I've been involved and stuff like that. But I really wish it was so much fun going through the whole thing over all the decades and all the friends and all the experiences that I wish I could just get back on that ride again and do it all over,
Right.
Just erase all my experience and go back and try it all over again, because it was a blast, and it still is. But
Yeah, the initial
you can never
learning
get
experience-
back those first time feelings of things,
Right.
first time experiences. So that's that's what I'll say about that. But looking on Twitch right now, we have Dusty Haskins with us. He made a funny comment. He says, "I'd open something up and have a spring hit me in the forehead right before it fell through the cracks of the deck."
Yeah, that was like when we were testing to do the setup on the showing the Android. And
Right.
I took the Android chip out right before we went on, and it shot 25 feet across the room, and we couldn't find the micro SD card.
Yeah, that's funny.
Another thing I want to say too is that astrophotography, the method of astrophotography, has changed a lot since all three of us have tried it with film. Okay, it used to be where you would have to make single shots that were in excess of 15 minutes, sometimes 30 minutes, 90 minutes, 2 hours of hand guiding a shot. Okay, and having a mount that had absolutely no glitches, which by the way didn't exist at that time. Okay, would have been a godsend. But most exposures now are what, 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes long. Okay,
Right.
very short, and you're collecting data over that short time, and you're throwing out shots that are not good, and there can be not good for tons of reasons. Satellite could rip through the image. Wind could buffer the tube, making it shake. You could knock the tripod with your foot. Just all kinds of stuff like that. Including the occasional time that maybe you have a tooth error, okay, on your gear.
Right. Yeah, there's little, especially inexpensive mounts have little defects on the worm and the wheel.
Right.
That's where the hyper tuning that Kent was talking about earlier with the polishing gets rid of that. That was my biggest frustration with my mount early on, was that the auto guiding, even though he had great auto guiding, every once in a while a little defect would cause a little blip on the image, and you'd get this spike off the stars. And that's why I went with the telescope Drive Master.
Well, back in the 60s and 70s and 80s, it was pretty common that if you bought a mount, if it had a worm gear, a lot of them had spur drives, and every tooth had tooth-to-tooth error.
Yeah, right.
So you had two teeth that were like this, and so every time it rolled over one of the other teeth.
There was no belt drives. In fact, belt drives
worm drives were not very popular back then, and drive errors could be in the arc minute range, okay, instead of arc second range that we're looking for. A lot of astrophotographers tried to get mounts that are tracking at under 2 arc seconds or under 1 arc second. Okay,
right.
Which is just an unbelievable level of accuracy. But that's what as you're tweaking and tinkering, that's what you're shooting for. So the very first part of Hoskin's description of the level of adjustments that you're going to make, or in that nano range. Okay, he's not kidding. Okay, you're making tiny adjustments to try to tweak it in to get that last, to knock off 1 or 2 more arc seconds of error.
Yep, that last little bit of performance you can squeeze out.
That's right. And so, but with shorter exposure times, gosh, you could probably go back to some of the old mounts that had some, not even had worm gears, and get not bad performance out of them.
Right.
Doing these short exposures where you're tracking and stacking. And so,
And that's where understanding all the components of what makes a good image and understanding all the error part. You know, what causes all the errors? Where are all the error terms at?
yeah,
Where are they located? And then you can balance all that stuff over the
that's right.
whole.
That's right.
You
And it is that
balance it.
balancing that when you get into Jerry's book and you read it all the way through, you realize that it is about balancing that, because it's balancing the cost you throw into something. It's balancing the performance of each individual part, you know, and then learning how to marry those parts. And so, but it's a fun, that is an enjoyable part of this hobby as well. So, and you can always work with gurus, because there's lots of people who will take you under their wing and show you systems that really work out well. Maura Kelly is one of these people. You know, I'd like to give her a shout out, because she's been sending me astrophotographs for about 2 years now, and she's working with off the shelf stuff, as most of the astrophotographers are out there, and so maybe I can get her to let me show some of her images on.
We ought to have her on sometime, you know?
Yeah, it would be fun. Would be fun.
Yeah.
She was mentioning she'd like to meet up at a star party sometime. So when we get to do that again.
So let's talk about winter grease, Jerry.
Yeah, I want to get through the rest of this document real quick. He talks about re-greasing when he has it all apart. He went ahead and applied new grease, but he's not sure if it helped or not. Basically, I think the grease we apply is pretty standard stuff. Over time, over several years, you'll probably want to re-grease the mount, maybe every year, every 2 years, if you decide to get into the mount and re-lube it. That's probably a good idea. You have to just inspect it to see how dried out the grease is, I guess, or how much is there left to do its job.
And too much can be just as bad as not enough, or maybe even worse.
Yeah.
You know, grease can be overdone.
Right. That's just and again, you have to get personal experience doing it. I mean, it's your mileage may vary basically in terms of how much. So there's Bob would probably, Bob could probably suggest how much grease to put on or how little grease to put on. Do you have any recommendations there, Scott or Kent? I mean,
how much grease to put on? Well, you can put too much on. That's for sure. You know,
I think just enough to make it feel good. I think you just start with a small amount.
Remember,
and you rotate it, and you just do a little bit at a time, and you figure out what just the minimum amount needed to do the job.
Remember the old Dippity Doo commercial? Just a dab will do.
Yeah,
just a small little dab is going to be enough.
Well, this goes down all the way down to how hard should I turn the wrench? How much pressure should it be? How much belt tension should there be? These kinds of things. It would be like talking to a guy who works on engines, and you know, he knows just to apply just enough pressure, you know, to do all that. There are tools that have you know, pounds, you know, of torque wrenches and that kind of thing. But
this level of equipment doesn't. We don't. Yeah, it's by feel. We don't have specs for torque requirements for bolts or anything like that. It's really a tuning. It's really a fine tuning thing. It's an experience. It takes some experience to understand what you're getting when you torque that screw a little bit tighter or looser.
Right.
So is that the end of the document?
That's the end of the document. He talks about what he has on his system. So that's a good document to read through, at least to get an idea of what's involved and understand the components in your mount.
Mm-hmm.
I have to say the Exos 100, although the adjustments may be slightly different, the components are practically the same component. In fact, the drive system is the same drive system on the Exos 100 in terms of the pulleys and the motors. The adjustments may be a little bit different. I I haven't compared them
But
directly.
they are. We have a video out there on YouTube shows Alex adjusting the belt tension and some stuff.
Yeah. So, yeah, get to know your mount. Basically, that's the moral of the story here, right?
Yep. Well, I'll tell you what, the quality of the video is much better, I think, than on Skype.
Oh, in terms of Zoom.
Yeah, Zoom as opposed watching it. I mean, some of our regular viewers may weigh in on, do you think the video looks better this way? Steve Malia says, just a dab and let the rotation move the grease around. It will evenly and lightly coat the gears.
There you go.
Doesn't need much.
Right.
Oh, look at that, Scott. Read the question on from Facebook, or the response from Cesar Barolo.
Okay.
You see that one? Find that one. I want you to read it.
Let's see. This mount, Exos2 and the Exos 100 are becoming more popular every day. The first thing that our clients ask us is an assistant software for polar alignment in the south and more options of alignment stars in the skies. Beyond this, they fall in love with their mounts. Wonderful.
Yeah, we are on a continuous update program for these mounts. We will be in the future releasing new things for the mounts and new tools. So that's our plan.
That's
so just keep an eye out on what we're going to be releasing in the next this year and next year and going
in the next
forward.
future.
Yeah, so, in the next future, yes.
Yeah. So Jerry, James the astrophotographer asked, will this guide be available on the GOTO community? We showed that when we started. Why don't you go ahead and show it now?
Yeah, I'll show that again.
Been on where it's looking. And the answer, James, is yes. It's available now.
So if you go to the groups list of the subgroups, it's on the mounts subgroup in the forum. And then if you go to files, the files section, it's right here.
Share your screen, Jerry.
Oh, I didn't share it. That's right. Let me go back.
Yep,
I'm sorry.
All right.
I just that's funny. All right, so let me go back. So if you go to the mounts subgroup on the forum and you go and bring up the list of messages, you'll see when you go there, you go to the files section down at on the menu on the left, go to files, and then you'll see it right here.
Okay.
Xs2 PMC-Eight tuning notes, Bob Hop, Robert Hoskin. And that's it. That's where you find it.
For all of you that were looking for that, that's great. It's great he shared it with us. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
That's the whole point of it, of the GOTO community. And Scott, I mean, that's
the whole point. That's right.
The foundational change that Explore Scientific is trying to create in how this industry operates.
That's right. Yeah, and if you belong to the OpenGOTO community, you're basically in a club with hundreds of members, all kind of focused on one technology, which is the PMC-Eight and the OpenGOTO system. So to have all the resources and help and people literally making changes to the product to satisfy the community, it is achieving my goal of having the consumer drive what this system is. So I'm really happy that it's blossomed that way, and I'm excited about the future. Because I think that
all of us have worked hard to make that happen. All of us at Explore Scientific.
Sure. It is. I believe it is the consumer that should be driving the product. Well, they should be building it for themselves.
PhD2, open source, Android, Linux based, open source.
Yeah.
Karsta Seal, open Indie Driver.
Yeah.
This is just part of that open source, open community that group adds on things that makes it better than any one person can make it.
Yeah. you do need a group of people that can oversee contributions, to secure a situation where someone doesn't introduce things that have a lot of bugs in it. Okay. And so that's something that,
or even malicious. That's the thing. We live in an environment today where you could introduce malicious things.
yeah, that's always, that's sad when that happens, but we all worry about that kind of thing happening to ourselves, no matter what we're using these days. But let's move on. Okay, we've talked a little bit about, we've talked a lot about the tuning of these mounts. And we touched on unguided tracking performance, but do you want to speak further about that?
There was a customer on the forum that had trailed images, and they were unguided images, and they were talking about the trailing. And it dealt somewhat with, if you remember our discussion yesterday about the location, some of it was related to the location in the sky where the object was, and also where periodic error was showing up in the image. You recall that, Kent, Scott?
Yep.
So overall, to put it in a nutshell, these mounts require you to guide them to get the best performance. You can do low focal length imaging, 200 millimeter focal length imaging that has good results. But and with unguided, but that's fine for wide field imaging. That works great. There's lots of examples of that with our mounts. But to go further into it, you need to go into my dogs are barking in the background. Hold on.
Throw something at him, Jerry. Oh no, don't throw something at him.
I'm sorry. I'm getting ready to get up and do something, but my daughter's gonna take care of him.
Do something.
My daughter's gonna take care of him.
Dun, dun, dun.
You guys go on. All right. So in terms of unguided performance,
One of the dogs has a horn. That was crazy.
Yeah, that's what they sound like.
Okay. All right. So
in terms of unguided performance, there, you want to tune up and you want to use an auto guiding system, and to get rid of the periodic error, basically to compensate for that.
So Jerry, what can a person expect to get if they have a 400 millimeter telescope or a little ED80 or something, or a long focal length camera? What kind of, if they have a great polar alignment, what kind of tracking can they expect out of each one of these two mounts?
So in terms of unguided performance, the Exos2 is going to be better than the Exos 100 unguided. Typically, the unguided PE on is fairly smooth. It's pretty smooth because we have the belt system on there versus a spur gear system. So on the Exos2, you'll see RMS values for the periodic error of around, I would say, 10 to 15, maybe 20 arc seconds. That's over a 4-minute period. So there are times when you can take 30-second images where you have very little motion. It's a sine wave. The shape of the PE is a sine wave. Okay. So there's certain parts of the sine wave that you're at where you have very little tracking error.
The top and the bottom of the wave.
Right.
Top,
and then right.
Bottom, right? Because it's okay.
And then other areas where you have worse, but overall the total PE is going to be around 10 to 15 arc seconds. On the Exos 100, it'll be up around 25 to 30 arc seconds of PE unguided. And again, you'll have sections of that where you can do 30-second or 20-second images, and it's fine. Now, one of the things that makes it different on these mounts, the ring gear only has 144 teeth, which means the worm period is longer, which is really a benefit, because it takes 10 minutes for it to go through that sine wave cycle. on PE, where on a mount like the G11, it's a 4-minute worm period where it's faster, but it's more precise, and it's smaller PE on a G11 at a 4-minute worm period versus a Exos 100 or a Xs2 mount with a 10-minute worm period. So there's a balance there where you get the benefit of the longer worm period in terms of the PE.
So, you know, if they go to a guide camera, I mean, that's a game changer. I mean, it's hard to learn to set up sometimes, but it becomes,
yeah, there's a learning curve to that for sure. But again, it adds a lot of value to the mount system in terms of performance.
So Chox is thinking about buying has a 500 millimeter telescope. What guide scope do you think he should get in the focal range of?
There's a rule of thumb that's basically a 3-to-1, which means your main optic should be 3 times the focal length of your guide optic. So with the 500, but again, then on the auto guiding system, you have a minimum focal length that you want to get to also. So in terms of a 500 millimeter main optic, divide that by 3, and that's 133 or
Millimeters.
166 millimeters. But that's a little bit small for an auto guider. I would suggest getting something at least 200 millimeters for an auto guider scope for any mount system, any focal length that you're going to shoot.
So you're saying for whatever it is, 200 millimeters is basically the bottom, the smallest focal length.
That's kind of what I would suggest with
go.
today's auto guiding cameras, with the pixel size they have. That's what I would suggest.
Okay.
There's a question here that we've got from YouTube viewers here. Bob Trepaccioni asked, Jerry, did you have the pleasure of meeting Sir Patrick Moore?
That's an interesting question. So when my first book was released in 2012, Patrick Moore was alive and very much involved with the book series that my books were in. And the editor I was working with was very good friends with Patrick Moore, and I was hoping to get him to sign my first book and for my own personal copy. But unfortunately that didn't happen, and I never talked to him. I never got to talk to him with email or phone or anything like that. But I was very, I'm very good friends with the people that were around him a lot. So unfortunately he passed away that same year, I think, that my book came out, and I was not able to interact with him.
Okay. Another comment here, question. Do the stats you get from PhD2 tell you how well you're tracking and if you need to tune your mount further?
Yeah, that I would refer back, we maybe try to find that video we did a couple weeks ago, but the PhD guide logs give you a ton of information, really very precise information to understand what's going on with your whole gear train, not just the fundamental worm period, but all the components that are in your worm or in your gear train. It'll show you problems in those areas, and we go over that in that video.
Yes, right. Okay.
It takes time to learn to read those guide logs. I try to look at them periodically, and I'm getting better at reading them. But there's a lot of data packed in those guide logs that take a certain amount of skill. Where I could decipher it over a day, and Jerry can look at it in 2 minutes and go, "Oh, it's this," because of his skill level experience.
There's a program that we use that's freely available. All these programs are freely available. That's another nice feature about this community, is that it's called PEC Prep, PEC Prep, and that's what I use to analyze the PhD guide logs. PhD Guiding 2 also has an internal, I think it has some internal tools to look at the, I call it a periodogram, because you're looking at the periods, and the period has peaks for each of the components in the analysis. And but I think PhD Guiding 2 has tools to look at this, but I always like PEC Prep because it's got a lot of good tools to analyze the log.
Right.
So let's hold the because we're a person short today in customer service. I didn't get a chance to get set up for the to changing the Wi-Fi channel. So let's hold that one for another day. So,
Okay.
because I'm
All
not
right.
prepared for it. Sorry about that, folks.
Well, we can talk about it a little bit. The mounts do allow you to change the Wi-Fi channel, and so when you get a PMC-8 system, whether it's an iXos 100 or you know, the silver box, it comes with a little they're called J connectors, is that right?
RJ
RJ,
RJ12.
right?
Mhm.
So
a phone jack. It's basically a phone jack.
yeah, it's a phone jack. And so what you can do is you can power up your system. If it shows that you're connected and yet you're not getting any response, this is probably because you have other Wi-Fi intruding on your system. Okay. So it looks like there's a handshake, but still nothing's performing. So we have basically 8 different channels you can select from. And
Actually, there's 10. There's 10 channels, but
okay.
there's three that are the major channels, and then there's intermediate channels that you can select also.
So side
Okay.
channels.
Okay.
Sideband almost.
So you just plug in, you power it up, you plug in the connector, and then it's a power cycle. Isn't that right, Jerry?
Yeah, so the way we built this is we're taking advantage of the auto guiding port to plug this little RJ12. I call it a dongle. It's the Wi-Fi selection dongle that we include with the mount. And what happens is when the system boots up and it detects this dongle installed in the ST4 port, it says, oh, because of the configuration of the pins on that port and shorted, it says, oh, you want to change the channel. In the firmware, it detects that. It says, oh, you want to change the channel. It goes through the function or the process to change the channel, and it cycles the channel. So you basically stick it in, you power it up, you stick it in, you let it boot up, and then you wait for it, and then you can pull it out, and it's changed channel. And every time you plug it in, it will change the channel, and then you reboot it, and it'll be on the next channel. It sequences through all the channels.
Okay, so it's not like it randomly.
No, it steps through each channel, and you can see it. There's tools that we have to look at, and I don't know if you want to demonstrate one of those tools, Kent. It's the Wi-Fi.
Let's not do it today. Let's do it.
Okay, all
let's
right.
do it. I gotta get set up because I'm on a Mac right now, and I have to be in a Windows machine to use that command prompt. But what the tool is, it lets you see every single Wi-Fi your computer can see, and it shows you what channel it's on, and it also shows you the signal strength. So it's a great tool to analyze your Wi-Fi environment. It's really easy. We'll get it prepared and have that ready to go, and try and do a live demonstration.
Yeah, we'll do it tomorrow.
But I've got to get zoomed from my work computer into this meeting so I can share that screen. And yeah, this was too much for today.
Yes. So, okay, so let's jump to the question of the day. And what are our door prizes anyways, Kent?
Oh, our door prizes today. Let's see. A free shoulder washer.
Yeah, right.
No.
And a plug nickel.
And I had a plug nickel. The person who won the red light won last week, and he said he didn't want it, give it to somebody else. So it's a door prize for today. So this is just a standard, not a standard. It's a high function Explore Scientific, high functioning red light. So there you go.
Let's put out red light. That's right.
And we actually have people will contact us and say, what's the nanometer wavelength of that? And we say red, because we just picked a red filter, and we don't know what it is. It's just a red light.
Red.
It's red.
Right.
Just red. So probably between 450
I want to know, though. People want
470 nanometers. And a Wiltirian, I pronounced it correctly, Wiltirian.
Yes, you did.
Multi-latitude, large planisphere. So this thing is a bad boy. Has the north on one side, the southern facing view on the south side. So because of that,
still southern facing from the northern hemisphere.
correct. This is northern hemisphere only.
And it's done that way. So Wiltirian designed this planisphere specially to eliminate the distortion that you see in most planispheres.
Right.
Okay?
So if I go to July, let me spin this thing around.
And this works from 0 latitude at the equator all the way up to 60.
To 60 north. So if
Pretty
I go
much
to July
anywhere in the northern hemisphere.
if I go July the 15th at 9 p.m. tonight, just about this time it's getting astronomical dark, pretty close. So I have that on the front side. When I flip it over, it's the same time and date on the back side, so I can view what's visible in the southern sky from here and the northern sky from here. And it's got these really cool latitude lines that tell you where your horizon are and your horizon are. So it's a pretty cool little prize right here.
Yes.
I like this thing.
Yes.
So those are the two prizes. Sir Jerry, what's
Cool.
our question?
So our question is, again, it's dealing with the poll.
So hang on. Are we doing
Okay.
one winner or two winners?
I don't know.
Package deal, one winner.
One winner. I think it's
No, let's make it 2.
okay. We'll make it
Now that
2.
you brought it up, let's make it 2.
I have one question. So the first 2 people to get this right, I guess. I don't know
First
how
one
that.
gets to pick. First one gets to pick. Second one gets leftovers.
Yeah. So Scott will have to manage that.
Well, they're both going to get the same. They're going to get the package. Red
Oh,
flash.
we're gonna give them the package.
you're
Oh,
gonna get-
Scott's,
oh, that's
Scott's
nice.
generous mood today, folks.
That's four prizes for the
Cheap
price of
out
one.
on this.
4 prizes for the price of 1.
That's right.
All right. So the question is, on a previous poll on the forum, and I give you a hint, all the polls are in the main subgroup.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about, we asked people what focal length are they imaging at with their mount systems. And so what was the range of the most popular, what was the most popular range of for their mounts, what they were using on their system? What focal lengths were most popular, I guess. And I specify a specific range, and it's got the most votes, basically.
Excellent. So while they're running off and doing that, I will tell you that we're going to be doing another virtual event this year because of the pandemic. All the events that we've done with our, organized events like the Northeast Astronomy Forum, the AAS session. Those were held virtually, and so it's been interesting to do that because we had to learn how to reach out to the public and share and interact, live most of the event. And so we're going to be doing a third one, which is called Cosmos Questicon. And if you go to cosmosquest.org, you'll learn all about it, but it's going to be on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And we will be interacting with people on yet another platform called Discord. And so you can check that out. This is our first time to do this show. And it's led by Pamela Gay, who is someone that's well known in NASA circles and in scientific circles and the amateur circles as well. So it's Pamela does a podcast on a regular basis, and she's won awards for it. So she's really great, and we're glad to do it with her. And so let's see if we have some answers here.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how many people answer.
Oh, I also want to give a shout out to Dusty Haskins. I'm not going to show the image yet, but he took a really nice shot of Neowise, which was really great. I don't know if how many of you are out there trying to observe it.
I wanted to share Dr. Myron Masuda's image that he took last night.
Have it? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Let me see here. Where's it at? There's a couple. I'll go ahead and share my desktop real quick with this.
Oh, beautiful.
That was just with his DSLR on his near his house. I don't know if I've got another one here. Let me see here.
Look at the tail. It goes way out there.
Yeah, there's another one that he took from Skyline Drive.
Mm-hmm.
At the Shenandoah National Park. He was staying there this week.
Stack of 10 5-second exposures. Now, is this just on a regular camera tripod or?
On a tripod.
Oh, I see.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. I think I detect some periodic error just in his tripod.
Yeah, I think, yeah, there's a little bit of drift there.
Little drift.
Training.
No, it's beautiful.
That's how the comet moved actually over that period when he took the image. That's the trailing of the star. That's the comet.
Yeah, can you imagine being up close to a comet like that? That's outgassing and sublimating.
It'd be pretty messy. It'd be pretty messy.
Yeah, it sublimates from ice to gas, and it's releasing all the dust. When you look at a comet, and you see the part of the tail that's blue. That's you know, the ion tail. And then you see the yellow part that's moving. Usually, it's curved. That's in the arc of the orbit of the comet, and then the blue part of that tail is the solar wind blowing, you know, and charging those particles. So,
Any answers yet?
I don't hear you, Kent. You're muted.
I want to be ahead of it, not behind it.
Yeah, it'd be like going down a gravel road with a big truck in front of you and your head sticking out the window.
Right.
Yeah. All right. So Scott, let's see what some answers are. I don't know the answer to this question. I didn't look it up. So
if we got some answers, I'm gonna look on YouTube here. Jeff Wise says between 100 and 130. Wolfgang is saying, Mr. Thump 30, excuse me, is saying 701 to 900. Bob Trepian.
That's winter.
Of 701 to 900.
Yep. Is that the first two?
I think so. Let's look.
It looks like it.
That's the winter chicken dinner.
Jeff Norwood said, I'll take a swag on the question of the day, 400 to 500. That was on Facebook.
Let me share my desktop.
Let's see.
Yep. So
Twitch answer 4,064 focal length last night. And then that's Redbeard. Redbeard says 750 makes sense though. Oh, I think he's having a chat with Dusty Haskins.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And Dustin also says I did a video of it last night, so I'm looking forward to seeing that. It should be really cool. So, all right. So,
So real quick, Mr. Thump 30 and Bob, send an email to service@explorescientific.com and put attention Kent contest winner in there, name, address, phone number, shipping address, obviously, and I'll have your email. And I'll get those dispatched to you. Get that done tonight, and I'll get them out tomorrow.
I'd like to request that if they could get on the forum and talk about the show too, and tell them what we're doing here on the show and how they're winning prizes and everything.
Yeah, if one of you would start a thread and then everybody else jump in on that one, so we don't get 10 threads going. But that would be cool to say, hey, this is great, and I'm winning stuff just by being on the membership. Drive some more viewership to us.
Excellent. Well, is there any other comments? Anything else? Any other questions? I'm going to just check right here. Good show. Thank you. Thanks for bearing with us through our Zoom experiment here. And nice to see you all there. You know, it is interesting. You mentioned something about the video quality. The video quality on Twitter is not very good. You look at it on YouTube, it's really sharp, looks good on Facebook, looks really, really good on Twitch, which is great. So that's, you know, if you're looking for the best platform to watch us on, I'd say Twitch right now is the winner for that. So
Jeff Weiss just joined. I saw his email pop up, a notification he was on. Thank you, Jeff, for joining the forum.
Right. And we'll see you tomorrow. We have another great show planned for you tomorrow. And if you are so inclined, check out Cosmo Questicon. It's the 10th one, so it'll be my first time.
So
and
Scott, I was trying to look that up. What is it? Spell the URL.
Go CosmoQuest, QUEST.org.
I was putting .com, .org.
.com.
There we go. CosmoQuest.org. There we go. CosmoQuest. That's it. .org.
Yep. You guys have a good night, and thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon. And keep looking up. Try to see that comet tonight. We'll see you. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
We can talk right now, can't we? Yeah.